Thank you. And good morning. It's really good to be back here. I've been looking forward to this. And the title for the message today is Where is Your Attention? So I want to start with a story about myself. So Becky and I have a 2008 red convertible Solera. Now it's an old car, but it's really pretty. And at some point, it got scratched up and I needed to have it repainted. And I brought it somewhere and they did a fabulous job. We don't have the car. We didn't have the car when it was new, but it couldn't have looked better. In fact, I called them up and told them, if you ever need somebody in an ad or anything, I'm your guy. And then I would kind of park away from other cars and I would tell people, I got to be really careful. I don't want to get any more scratches on this car. It looks so good. And of course, Becky and I went to a meeting one night, and when I came out, guess whose car had a scratch on it? That Sunday, I was talking about it at church, and after church, one of my practitioners came up to me and said, I knew your car was going to get a scratch. And I said, how did you know? And she said, that's all you talked about, what you didn't want. You put your attention totally on what you didn't want and not what you did. And you brought it about, kiddo. So let me tell you what some other people say about that. John Asseroff said that here's the problem. Most people are thinking about what they don't want, and they're wondering why it shows up over and over again. And the Hicks say the same thing, that everything that we bring into our life is drawn to us. It responds to the stories we tell about ourselves. And lastly, Bob Proctor, the late Bob Proctor, said everything coming into your life, you're attracting. Simply put, like attracts like. Like attracts like. What we put out is what we get back. And if we don't like what we're putting out there, we are the writer, the editor, we're the publisher, everything about the stories of our life. And when we take the time to say, I'm not happy, and change those stories, our lives begin to improve. What we need to do is to develop a consciousness that allows whatever it is we are seeking to have respond to us. We need to develop that consciousness that happens. Whatever we want to attract, we attract into our life. I read about a study that I found really interesting. It was about a doctor who did a 5-year study on artists, athletes, and scholars. And what he wanted to do was find out what separated that from the rest of us. His hypothesis going in was that the stories he would hear were about great natural gifts. That's not what he heard. What he heard was stories of drive, stories of dedication, and stories of hard work. What we, in our philosophy, would describe as an intention. We set that intention, we put our attention on the intention, and soon it shows up in our life. Let me give you another example that you might be aware of. Wilma Rudolph was an Olympic runner. When Wilma was a young girl, she had polio. And the doctors told her not only was she never going to run, but she probably would never walk again. Her mother said, "They're wrong. You're going to walk again." Wilma said, "I liked what my mother was telling me better than I liked what the doctors were telling me. So I believed my mother." And that's what she saw in her life. She would take time to see herself leading a normal life, to see herself walking, to see herself running. And that's what she did. What she did was what we tell people to do, to turn away from the condition that's existing and put our attention on what we want to come into our life. Ernest Holmes wrote, "Thoughts are more than things. They are the cause of things." And he also said, "It is the nature of the universe to give us what we are able to take. It cannot give us more." And as we know, the taking is mental. The taking is thinking. We create our future today. It's not created from our past, from back far away. If you would like to see what your life is going to be like in 3, 4, 5, or 6 months, take some quiet time and make an inventory of what you're putting out into the universe. And whatever that is, that'll tell you what your life is going to be in the next few months. And if you don't think you like it, it's never too late to change it. Michael Beckwith tells us all of the people, all of the conditions, and all of the places that come into our life come because that's where we put our attention. Let me tell you about Ernest Holmes. Ernest Holmes had an article in Science of Mind magazine where he talked about somebody he was working with. This was a man who was in his 60s and was driving a truck. His daughter had been healed from a physical condition by Ernest Holmes. And he wondered, can my life, he wasn't happy with what life was showing him, can my life be healed like that? And so he went to Ernest, and Ernest Holmes said, here's what you're going to need to do. You're going to need to meditate. You're going to need to pray for 3 months. And for 3 months, every day, several times a day, I want you to read this meditation. Here's the meditation that Ernest Holmes had him read. God wishes to me to be successful. There is an intelligence in the universe that responds to me. There is a law of good that is able to do anything. God is right where I am. Therefore, I do not have to go anywhere to find him. The law of good is right where I am. Therefore, I do not have to go anywhere in search after it. I live and move and have my being in this divine spirit and this perfect law. I believe it will respond to me. Therefore, I am going to trust it. Well, he did this for 3 months. And then one of his customers on his route offered him a job in the field where he used to have his business. So he took it. And a few months after that, the same person said, you know, I want to retire. Here, I will give you my business and you pay me back out of the profits. And this is what this fellow used to tell his friends. He used to say, this is God's business. This is a power greater than I am is directing it. I am partners with this power. And what Holmes said at the end of the article, he said, This is a true story of a man who is willing to sit on an idea for 3 months because he believed and he was persistent in his faith. So what are some things that you and I can do if we want to change our life? Let me give you 3 or 4. We can visualize what we want. We can take time every day to find a quiet space and visualize what it is, the life we want, to close our eyes, to see it, to hear it, to smell it, maybe, to use all of your senses to bring it as alive as possible into your life. And that's what we call having a mental equivalent. And the more and more sharply you could bring that into your consciousness, the quicker it will happen. We can expect, the second thing is we can expect the best. We can get rid of any negative thoughts. I love what Wayne Dyer used to do. When Wayne Dyer had a negative thought come into his head, he would simply silently go, next, and move on to the next thought. A third thing we can do is not give up. Don't get discouraged. Keep on doing what you're doing. Believe that you're going to manifest it, and you will. And lastly, we can be grateful. Gratitude. We all have something or some things we can be grateful for. And when we approach life with an attitude of gratitude, life approaches us back the same way. Let me tell you another story that Eric Butterworth tells that happened in Java. A young man is following a young lady for about a mile. And finally she turns to him and she says, "What are you dogging my footsteps for?" And he says, "It's you. You are the most beautiful thing I have ever seen in my life. And I'm in love with you." And she says to him, "Turn around and look at my younger sister behind you. She's even more beautiful than I am." So he turns around and he sees a really homely woman. And he says to the first lady, "You lied to me." And she said, "You lied to me too." She said, "If you were so in love with me and thought I was so beautiful, why did you turn around?" And the point is, we say that we believe that God is the only power and the only presence. And then when our life starts to fall apart, we turn around. We allow fear to let us turn around because our faith isn't strong enough. And Ernest Holmes once said, "If you don't know the truth in difficult times, then you don't know the truth. If you don't know the truth in difficult times, then you don't know the truth." And he also said, "It may really be difficult to hold on to the truth in difficult times, but it can be done. Others have done it, and you can do it too." Here's the bottom line. The bottom line is each one of us has to take responsibility for our own life. Blame doesn't work. At some point, we're all adults. You got to give up blaming your parents, your kids, your ex-wife, whatever it is. We need to take responsibility, because when we blame somebody else, it puts us in the position of victimhood. And we don't want that. When we get into victimhood, we move away from the spiritual powerhouses that we are. If you don't like what life is showing you, you can change it. No matter how long you've been going in a certain direction, no matter what has gone on in the past, if your life isn't going as you desire it to go, you can ask. You can ask this: how did I create this situation? And what do I need to put into the universe to get a different result? I'll say it again. If we don't like how our life is going, we can simply ask, how did I create this situation? And what do I need to put into the universe to get a different result? Someone once said, you are the healer and creator of your life. Don't waste your life waiting for someone to come along and change it. You can change your thoughts. So I want to close with one last story that, to me, when I read this, it so sums up what I'm saying to you. And it's about a lady named Lynn Grabhorn. And in a book she wrote, she tells this story. A friend of hers, who is a realtor, offered her an apprenticeship with him. His name was Tom, and he was a realtor in Central California. She studied with him for months and months. And then he finally said to her, you're ready for your first client. And the client was looking to sell a large ranch overlooking the Big Sur. And if you know anything about that real estate, it is expensive. In fact, her commission would have been more than she had made in her entire work life. Think about that. If she could have pulled this job off, she would have made more money than if she added up all the money she made in her lifetime. So she gets this deal, and the buyer and seller agree. And Tom is ecstatic. He's so proud of her. And she starts to panic. It was too easy. It's too incredible. It's too good to be true. This just isn't going to happen. And sure enough, on the day it was set to close, the buyer found a loophole and backed out. And that happened to Lynn two more times. And she finally said to Tom, I can't do this. It's eating me up alive. And this is what Tom said to her. He said, sweetie, you blew them away with your fears. You have to feel them closing. You have to see it. You have to see yourself shaking their hands. You have to see yourself celebrating. You've got to know it's gonna work. Or trust me, it won't. If you can't feel it happening, it won't. And to me, that's the perfect summary of this message. If you can't feel it happening, it won't. Close with some words from Deepak. Excuse me. Deepak Chopra said, every time you're tempted to react in the same old way, ask if you want to be a prisoner of the past or a pioneer of the future. It's your choice. So thank you. Thank you for this opportunity again today. And before I end it, before I came on, we were talking about what happened last night to former President Trump. And I was asked if I would do some kind of prayer. And so I want to read you a prayer. I don't remember what year I wrote this, but I wrote it and Science of Mind printed it. And it's simply titled, A Prayer for Peace. We gather this day to pray for peace in our day. In this moment, we recognize we are all one, blessed in our diversity, honoring our differences. We may speak different languages, pray in our own way to the God of our choosing, wear skins of different colors, and express our love in ways that differ. Yet, beneath all of these differences, there remains an ever-present truth. We are all children of a very loving God. So now I speak these words of peace for each and every one of us. Let us come together and cherish the gifts we share on our beautiful planet. Let us plant seeds of love and compassion as we turn away from violence and hatred. Let us embrace our children and create a world where they feel safe and protected and no longer live with the effects of war and anger. Let us work together to be sure that each of us has enough to eat and feels free to turn to the God they believe in. Let us welcome our differences as we glory in our oneness. Let us remember that the choices we make create the world we live in. So let us make choices that speak to peace, compassion, dignity, love, and forgiveness. And lastly, let us always remember there's one life, that life is God, and that life is expressing as each of our lives right now. Again, thank you. God bless you. Have a wonderful week, and I'll see you in a minute when we come back and spend some time chatting with each other.